All right, so here we are. Hey guys, it's Corey with the Mills team at Keller Williams Realty. I am joined by Michelle Castle. She is here. There's been a lot of changes in the real estate industry and especially with mortgages. So today I'm going to talk with Michelle. She's going to give us just a little bit of insight. She's not going to go too in depth because, from my understanding, there's been a lot of changes. So Michelle, what kind of changes have you been seeing?
Well, so the changes that we're seeing right now is mortgage lenders have drastically changed their credit score requirements on all of the loan programs, and partly because we now have the upcoming job loss and unemployment numbers that has got the mortgage industry just a little spooked.
Okay. Okay. So, what are you like when buyers are getting pre-approved? What are you telling them as far as what do they need to provide with proof of income and stuff like that? How are y'all handling that?
So first, you got to understand the difference in layoff and being furloughed. If you're
Okay.
furloughed, you're still an employee. And so when we call to verify employment, if someone is in the office to verify employment, we will get verification that you are currently employed. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a paycheck.
Right.
So laid off, obviously, the employment no longer exists. They not have a paycheck, but you don't have employment verification either.
Okay.
So that's the pre-approval part of the process that's super important. If you've been pre-approved in the past, but employment or income has changed, that pre-approval is no longer valid.
Right. Okay. And what you know, I do primarily listings. Probably 70% of my business last year was selling listings, but I do work with buyers as well. However, I still ask you questions all the time about, hey, I just got an approval letter from this buyer on this property or whatever. What are your thoughts? So I ask you about that stuff. What are you telling real estate agents right now, whether they're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, in terms of, if they did get a pre-approval letter, even if it was a week ago, and they've been negotiating back and forth, what's your advice to them just on making sure that the buyer's still good to go?
Well, right now, I feel a pre-approval letter is only good for 24 hours.
Right.
That's how rapidly credit score requirements are changing, employment and income verifications are changing. So if you're negotiating a contract, you need to call the lender the day that you're executing that contract and make sure everything is still okay.
Okay. And that's what I've done. I've had a listing where you are financing for the buyer, and we had been pre-approved about a month ago. We've been looking around. We found a property, and I reached out to you and just double checked to make sure that, number one, they're still good to go, and number two, can you talk a little bit about closing dates, because some people are still writing offers with 30-day closes, thinking that it's going to just turn around and be ready to close in 25 or 30 days. What do you have to say about that?
Well, so what's hard for folks to understand is how many third parties are involved in a real estate transaction, and how many of those third parties are working from home, how many of them are not even working at all right now.
Right.
So if we can't reach the third parties to do all of the background work that has to be done on a transaction, then we're at a standstill. So that is part of the delays that we're experiencing. And you got to realize too, appraisers typically need to be able to have access to the house
Right.
to do the appraisal. Sellers are not comfortable going, having people come into their homes right now. So we have to find the workarounds for the appraisal part of the process too. So, from beginning to end, there are so many people in between that could cause a roadblock if we can't get a hold of them and find the workarounds to keep the transaction moving forward. So we're telling folks to plan on 60 days, and we'll bump it up if we get everything done that we need to get done
Okay.
for the closing.
Okay. And then there's been some, from my understanding, there's been some big changes to government loans, FHA, VA, USDA loans. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Well, so without getting deep into the weeds on the technical side of things, there are mortgage lenders that even stopped doing the FHA, VA, and USDA financing. And part of that has to do with the finances as a mortgage company to be able to do those loans. So the process itself is being streamlined, much like the Fannie and Freddie loans now, as far as the appraisal is concerned and the employment verification. But there still are there's stricter guidelines whenever it comes to those verifications than there are on the Fannie Freddie conventional side of things. So those FHA VA contracts, you really need to get in touch with the lender and make sure that everything is still okay, because it's possible you're going to have to switch gears and either switch loan programs or go to a lender that's still doing those FHA VA transactions.
Okay, awesome. And then really the last question I have for you is, you hear people talking about, and I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there on payment deferral, or, payment deferment, pushing their mortgage payment back or not making their mortgage payment. I want to make sure that people have a good understanding of, should they make their payment? Are they basically getting free months, a free month of no payment or whatever? Can you speak on that, just so people have the right information and they're not skipping payments thinking that
I'm going to work on yes, because that is a concern of mine. That a deferment and forbearance are two different things.
Right.
So they have got to pick up the phone and call their mortgage company and find out what are the options and what happens to the payment that they don't make. Is it going to be added to the end of the loan? Are they going to owe it lump sum at the end of the period, not deferment period, at the end of the forbearance period? Or are they going to be able to modify their note? Those are all questions that are specific to the agency that granted the loan, so the loan program itself, and to the mortgage company. So don't make the assumption that skipping the payment is going to be okay, because it's not. At some point in time, that's going to have to be made up. What kind of impact is that going to have on your credit score? What kind of impact is that going to have on your mortgage loan itself and your ability to buy a house in the near future?
Okay, good. Thanks for clearing that up. And then, so really to summarize this call, it sounds like the number one thing is, if you are a buyer, if you're a homeowner who has questions about their payment, if you're a listing agent and you're not sure if the buyer's still approved, the biggest thing is pick up the phone, call the mortgage lender, call the loan servicing company, get the right information directly from the source. Don't take what you see on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you're getting your information and think that that's how it is, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Pick up the phone, call your people. Michelle, if somebody wants to get a hold of you to get pre-approved or to ask questions like that, how do they get a hold of you?
Call the office. We are still available at the office, 903-957-3100.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate your time. And if you guys have any other questions for myself or for Michelle on what the market's doing, what rates are doing, which rates are always changing very constantly. But if you guys have questions, give us a call. And we hope you're doing well. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.